On Sunday, March 26, 2017, from 2 to 4 p.m., the Podcast Rangers take over Atomic City Comics. That's right, Doom Thugs, and Everything is Awesome join forces to make one Megazord, and they're going to be putting our podcast on live at Atomic City Comics at 640 South Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. From 2 to 3, you can see Doom Thugs. From 3 to 4, you can see Everything is Awesome when they take on the nerd rocker of Philadelphia, Brian Gray, and they have the biggest, mightiest Avenger in the world, Thor, on hand to sit down and do their late night show. So get ready, because it's podcasting time.
Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No,
you're awesome.
No,
you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kevin. This is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's guest is one of those rare guests that we get, and that's a musician. Being a person who obviously is into podcasting, as you guys know, that's pretty much all I listen to. I think my music reference is somewhere in the 90s and 80s. So I'm not a huge music person as far as what I currently listen to, but I 100% respect the art, love talking to musicians. Some of my favorite podcasts out there are actual interview-based podcasts with musicians. 25 O'Clock. Steve from Bridge That Sound just started a podcast, and those are all musical-based podcasts, and they're some of my favorite, probably top 10 podcasts. So I love when I get a chance to sit down and talk to a musician. Please welcome to the show, from Los Angeles, from LA, and we got to talk about his name before we started, so I actually have the pronunciation, and it sounds like a fun little story. Please welcome to the show, Myke Clements.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for telling me how to pronounce your last name. And so I got to hear, before we do anything else, I got to hear the story you were starting to tell me about your first and middle name here.
Yeah, so a couple of things about the name. I go primarily by my middle name, which is Michael. It's spelled Mychal. And my parents wanted me to also have my dad's name in my name. So they gave me the first name Timothy, and my mom thought that Timothy Michael sounded better than Michael Timothy. So, but she wanted me to be called Michael. So every time I had a new teacher, all growing up through school, they'd go, Timothy Clements, and I'd have to raise my hand and say, yes, I'm here, but I go by Michael. It's my middle name. My parents they hate me. And also with the spelling, my mom didn't want me to be called Myke, and that lasted till I was about maybe 12 years old when we moved to Arizona, and everybody just called me Myke. And so she was watching a basketball game, and she was watching they weren't like directly watching it because our family, we hate the Los Angeles Lakers. Even though I currently live in Los Angeles, I'm originally from Northern California, so I'm a Sacramento Kings fan.
Okay.
And Michael Thompson was a player on the Lakers, and they saw the spelling, and my mom was like, yes, people won't call him Myke if they spell it like that. And the answer is no, yes, they will still call me Myke, but they'll also call me Mychal or Michelle. For a while in college, I was emailing back and forth with a counselor, and I eventually had to go into the office for the financial aid stuff. And they looked at their calendar and they were like, "I thought you were a girl."
It is an interesting way to spell the name, and I can see now the way I've been seeing it throughout our communication is as Myke, not so like instantly I saw it as a male name, Myke. I guess seeing the full spelling as it is Michael, it may I would have to see it. I can't picture it right now, but that's and it's because it's interesting. My middle name is also Michael, but it's not. It's the traditional Michael.
So your parents liked you.
Yeah. Well, I'm a junior, and which as So are you also a junior or no?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Because my thankfully, because my dad's middle name is Wayne. And so I would not have liked to carry around Wayne. That would have been a awful middle name.
But you got the Y's in both. That's
I know, right? And here's the funny thing. My parents wanted me to be called. They wanted to name me Michael because they were talking to my grandmother, and she was like, "Oh, we have a grandmother in our family. We have a Michael in our family." And one of my uncles was named Michael, and it turns out he was actually named Miles.
So it just all kinds of confounding. But yeah, no, I grew up as a junior, and that was not, as a kid didn't really matter, but as you get into your teen years and your voice, you go through puberty and your voice changes, and you start getting phone calls, and no one knows if they're talking to the right person. It becomes very, and then you start getting mail as a young man. It starts getting confusing. You're like, who's who? And when I had my first child, who was a boy, my dad was like really big on I really hope you name him Kevin Michael Gallagher III. I really hope you do it. I hope it's pass on the family name. And I was like, I don't know. I'd say I don't think I can do it. And my fiance is the one that convinced me, because she worked with someone who dated this guy named Trey, Trey, and he was a third. And I was like, oh, that's so that's so cool. I'm on board. That's one way that I can honor my father and not have to deal with the BS of having two Kevin Michael Gallaghers in the same house. Yeah. So I think that's the longest this show has ever talked about names. So let's get into your origin. So you're not originally from LA. You're originally from Northern California. At what age did you know you wanted to be a musician?
So I'm it's actually it's interesting. So I'm a second generation pastor's kid on both sides of my family. Both my parents were children of pastors. Okay. Which was it. When you grow up a pastor's kid, you kind of move around a lot, and so I was born in Walnut Creek, California, and we lived in Sacramento, California for about 8 years, and then moved to the Bay Area, about 45 minutes east of San Francisco, and then when I was 12, we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, which was very hot. And whenever people talk about Phoenix, they always say, "Oh, it's a dry heat." That is utterly false. In the month of August, you get these monsoons, and so it's 120 degrees all day, and occasionally it rains, and so it's humid. Yeah. Even at 2:00 in the morning, you walk outside, and it's like I could still fry an egg on the sidewalk.
Yeah. I've been to Phoenix maybe 2 or 3 times for work, and I have really bad nasal problems, and it was the humidity is always screws me up. So I know Phoenix heat, and it's not just a dry issue; it's just a heat issue.
Yeah, it's the overall temperature, and then it never cools down. So I was living there, and I met my best friend Zane, and he and I kind of discovered music about the same time. And he gave me, I won at my youth group a copy of Reliant K's The Anatomy of the Tongue-in-Cheek. So this was about like 2001-ish. And so I listened to that album, and it's for those that don't know, it's a pop punk album, and it is like the epitome of early 2000s pop punk, kind of sort of similar to Green Day. They were kind of like the Christian Green Day, although lyrically I think that they were a little bit more skilled. A lot of their songs were kind of tongue-in-cheek. They made jokes. They had a song called Sadie Hawkins Dance, and it was all about getting asked out to Sadie Hawkins Dance.
Yeah.
So that I discovered that album, and that was kind of like the first time I had like a connection with the band, and the first time I was like, I love this music. I'm gonna stay up every night, and I'm gonna listen to songs on repeat with the lyric booklet in my hand and a flashlight when I'm supposed to be sleeping. And I'm gonna memorize every single word to this album.
Wow.
And
wow.
I that was like kind of like early days when I first discovered music. That's like what I did.
Okay.
And one Sunday we were hanging out at the church, and my friend Zane had been taking some guitar lessons, and he was playing my dad's guitar. He was kind of strumming some chords, and I looked at him, and it was this whole like total jealousy thing of, there's no way that you're going to be able to do something that I can't do. You're not going to be able to play my dad's guitar. Like, that's not cool. And so I had this really just awful electric guitar that it kind of was like it looked kind of like a Firebird, a Gibson Firebird, but it played awful. It didn't stay in tune. But I started to learn some chords because I was like, well, if you're going to learn guitar, I'm going to learn guitar. And so I started to play guitar, and I fell in love with the instrument. It became for me the mode of expression, in a way where I normally couldn't express things that I was feeling, things that I was going through. I could express it through playing the guitar. My parents tell me this. My mom tells this story to everybody every time I bring up this movie. But I was home for the summer I think it was during college, and my brother was doing something, so mom was like, hey, we're going to go see a movie. And I love the movies. I love going to the movie theater, so I'm always down for a free movie. And,
of course.
So they were like, I was like, okay, what are we seeing? And she was like, My Sister's Keeper. And I was like, okay, I don't really know much about it. And so we went, and it was awful.
That's one I haven't subjected myself to.
It is not. I actually cannot watch a Cameron Diaz movie because of it. It made you feel awful. Okay. And I couldn't, say I didn't like that, and it made me feel things that I didn't really like feeling. But as soon as we got home, I went and I played some really sad music on my guitar for about 2 hours straight. And so guitar became like the way to truly express some of the stuff I've been feeling that I maybe not necessarily able to verbalize.
Yeah.
And so that was like when once I discovered the instrument, I was like, hey, I can actually speak with this instrument as opposed to just using my words. And it was a little bit more cathartic.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, that's the musicians I have spoken with, like, that's a very common thing I've noticed, is that it kind of all begins as a way to tell a story or to just get your emotions out there, especially like if you're, when you're a teenager, if you pick it up when you're younger, every teenager is they hate the world in some fashion, and they don't know how to say it. For me, it was wrestling. Like, I was really into like the WWE style wrestling back when I was a kid, and in the late late 90s, early 2000s when I was in high school. Like me and my friends, we started in the backyard, and that was like truly. What I found out now, in almost a decade and a half later, is that like it was the entertainment, the storytelling that I really liked, the creative aspect of me being able to go out there and tell a story. Now I do it through a microphone, and I mean, truth be told, I did it through a microphone back then. I would talk smack, if you will, and that's. It's just a thing that I can't imagine being a teenager that can't find that outlet. Yeah. And it's it's a great thing that I don't know. There's just something about music. When I was a teenager, that's when I listened to music most. Yeah. Because it was, when I wasn't doing something for me to tell a story or to just kind of get aggression out or whatever, I was listening to others do it. And, probably at the time, definitely at the time, I wasn't listening to it that way. But now, as I'm older, like I can think back and be like, yeah, I was totally like making a connection with those songs.
Yeah, there's actually an album that it came out when I was in high school. It was, the band Anne Berlin. Their album Never Take Friendship Personal. If I listen to that album, I feel everything I felt when I was 15. Like, it's dangerous for me to listen to any of those songs because it's like it just takes me right back to a not necessarily happy time. I become very melancholic. It's almost like it's almost kind of like heroin for my soul when I listen to that album, and I feel those feelings, I smell those smells, and that's kind of the power of music. And when I discovered that, it was like, I love this, and this is like, I want to play music for the rest of my life, even if I don't get to do it professionally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the sign to me of like someone that's just like truly in love with the craft. Yeah, that's I know, I'm fortunate enough to be doing podcasting for like this. I'm entering my 10th year of podcasting. Oh, nice. And in the beginning, when in 2006, 2007, when podcasting was just beginning, like we were reaching for guests, and I live in Philadelphia, so we are lucky enough to still, even back then, have like a good indie music community. Yeah. And I would say my love for music renewed 10 years ago when I was listening to all these indie punk bands or pop punk bands.
Yeah.
And this is one of those moments where I trailed on and I lost my train of thought. But those guys are all like, it's the non-mainstreamers. None of you are doing it for any other reason but for the love of music. You can tell.
Yeah, I still work a day job. I don't have any necessarily aspirations to be a touring like this to be my profession, but I can't not make music. Mm-hmm. It's impossible for me to not go. I can't go a week without playing my guitar or writing a song. It's like in my blood,
It's it's something that I think that I some of the guys that I've come up with, we'll say, in the podcasting industry that were musicians, they're like, some of them have like, kind of just taken a step out, and part of that is that they are now in their very late 20s or early 30s, married, families, but there's this one guy I know who's in his mid 30s and he's still rocking, he's still doing, he has a day job like you, and he's still he's hustling to sell his album that he put out, and but it's all for the love of it, and you hear that. Like I said, I think you hear that in the music. There's a reason that I appreciate indie music more than mainstream music, and I think there's a difference in the sound. Not saying that mainstream music's bad. It's just that I can hear a difference, and I usually prefer listening to indie.
Yeah, definitely. There's like an earnestness and a heartfeltness that they're making it, that even if nobody was going to listen, they would still make that music. Whereas, with some of the more commercial stuff, they're making it designed, engineered specifically because these melodies, these rhythms, this key will sell records, and so.
Yeah, so as a musician of like this, what I like to call the new media age, what's it? I don't know if it sounds like you're pretty young. How old are you? Do you mind me asking?
I am 27.
Okay, so we're not too far off.
Yeah.
So what's it like though? Like, when you were a teenager playing and trying to put together an album versus doing it now, when maybe it's getting your music is way more easier to put it out there to the world.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is for me is technology. Working a full-time job, I can actually put money aside to get good equipment. When I was first making music, I had this little, it was a hard drive recorder that only had 8 channels, but I could record 4 channels and send that over to a stereo channel, and it was almost kind of like early days of tape, but digitally. And the only way I could get it off of the device was to plug it into. I had this Windows 98 PC that had a mono input for recording, and I would use a Windows sound recorder, and I would play it on my little recorder into my computer and record that, and the audio quality was just awful. But it was definitely cathartic, and in terms of an artistic expression, I was able to actually say the things I wanted to say and play the things I wanted to play, but I didn't necessarily know how to really record it so that it would sound good, and also there weren't the outlets for posting music. I mean, I came up during the MySpace day, so
okay, yeah.
I was in high school when MySpace was out, and I think when Facebook came to the West Coast right before I went to college, you still had to have a .edu address, so that it wasn't the marketing platform that it is today, and Instagram didn't exist.
Yeah, no.
And
no.
So, there weren't outlets, and to get iTunes didn't even exist when I started making music.
Wow.
And
that's nuts to think about. That's what 10 15 years ago.
Yeah, because I've been playing guitar for, let's see, I'm 27 now. I've been playing and kind of recording my own songs for about 14 years.
Oh wow.
So
it's nuts to think of all this new media, iTunes, YouTube, even podcasts. It's all still in its infancy. It's all a teenager, really. It's not been around long.
It's kind of crazy because the thought of getting music that I recorded onto iTunes was such a foreign concept. I wouldn't have even known how to go about that. And today, I use DistroKid for all of my online distribution, and it's amazing. I pay $20 a year, and I can upload as much music as I want, and it goes live almost instantaneously. For Amazon, they usually get it up the same day. iTunes is about a week, and some of the other platforms, they take about a week to 2 weeks. But the fact that I can record a song, get it mastered, and immediately upload it is kind of mind-boggling. If I could go back and tell my 13, 14-year-old self, hey, getting your music on iTunes and having it heard by people in Norway is entirely possible when you're 27 years old, that would have blown my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and it's we're finally as we get into the iTunes is I guess only 14 or 15 years old at this point. it's now this next generation that is like they're now getting interested in music, and it's all normal to them. Like this is the norm, and it's something that I've kind of been aware of for forever, because I grew up on VHS still. Kids, that's a little black box, the tape in it, and it plays a movie. And it's nuts to see just where we started, where we are now, and that there's now a generation of kids who they don't even know what 9/11 is except for in the history books, and all they know is new media. They know what a podcast is from the womb. They know what iTunes and YouTube is from the age of, I mean, my son knows YouTube. He's 5 years old.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, like the possibility, if you're good with your your hashtags on Instagram, you can get your posts seen by people all over the world. And we just this year with the Grammy, with Chance the Rapper winning an award, we had the first ever artist to win a Grammy who had no physical distribution. He didn't sell physical CDs, and he had no major label support. Wow. For the early part of his career, he gave away his music. Like, that to me is kind of signaling a massive shift in the music industry, where you don't have to have a label. If you work hard and you can build a following, you can win a Grammy, which is like mind-boggling. Even 5 years ago, that wouldn't have even been possible.
Yeah. No, it's nuts. It's nuts. And the way to get your stuff made now is just, I mean, and I guess I'm taking the assumption, because I've seen it happen with one of my friends' bands, and I've never partaken, but like with Kickstarter and Indiegogo and other crowd sourcing, it's become, if you seek it, pretty easy to pre-fund your work based off your fans. And
even with the because what I did with mine is mine is entirely self-funded.
Nice.
I actually didn't spend much to make the record.
Okay.
In terms of the actual production, I paid. I used a site called Fiverr. You're aware of Fiverr?
Yes.
I found a guy that would he mastered my album for $35.
Oh wow!
And everything else, all of the recording, I did that all myself. I did all of the mixing myself with plugins that over the years, I wait until Black Friday, and then I usually buy 2 or 3 that I've kind of had my eye on, because they'll go on sale and I can get them way cheaper than the normal price. And just over the years of collecting equipment, I was able to make this album in my bedroom. Well, not technically not my bedroom. Our apartment has this weird little nook area that we kind of turned into a studio.
Gotcha.
If you hear like a rumble in the background, it's actually, we live right across the street from a highway. And so no matter where I am in the apartment, you can hear the rumble. It's kind of weird. Whenever we go someplace that doesn't have it, I have trouble sleeping, because I can normally hear it all the time.
Yeah, it's funny how that that kind of stuff sticks with you. If you live near a train station, like the train soothes you to sleep versus keeping you awake after a period of time.
Yeah, and if it's gone, you have trouble. You're like, what am I missing? Oh, right, the roaring noise of the super busy highway that's right outside my window.
Some people need the sounds of the ocean, others need a freeway.
Exactly. So, for me, collecting equipment over the years and getting, plugins and stuff to make the music, I was able to, for a very cheap price, be able to put together an album, and that's kind of been the most freeing aspect of the age we're living in, where I record with Logic Pro X, and that was a $200 recording software that is like, a lot of studios are actually switching over to it because it's cheap and it runs everything I need, and it's got great audio quality, and so that's kind of been I guess the biggest revolution in the music industry is you can actually record and fully produce an album in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, is like super exciting, especially for people that are just now getting into it and just now just discovering music. They have all these tools that they can use for relatively inexpensive amount. You can put an album together and maybe pay to have someone mix it and someone else to master it, and it'll sound great.
It is, yeah. It is nuts. Just without the technology, that's still the same technology that makes your music, and maybe not the exact same, but similar technology is what makes podcasting and even filmmaking, which is something that has become an interest of mine in the last 5 to 10 years. It's just something that's more accessible. It's to everybody now.
Yeah, I mean, you can record a podcast on your phone.
Yeah.
You can get a great mic, plug it into your phone, and just sit around and talk. It's the access that we have to technology now, especially in filmmaking. I mean, I just got the new iPhone 7, and I can record 4K video at 30 frames per second, and that device is in my pocket. Yeah. If I'd have shown that to my 13-year-old self, I would have lost my mind. You're like, oh. You mean I can, on this little device that fits in my pocket, I can record a movie and edit it and add effects and do some really cool stuff and upload it to a place where millions of people could see it? With this device, I probably would have died. It would have blown my mind.
And even when even with these phones that have such a high video quality, at first it was all right, well, we have this high video quality, how do we get equally high audio quality to it? And now we just mentioned the microphones for the iPhones. Now it's all there. Everything you need is there to kind of put together a movie if you want, right from your pocket.
Exactly.
It is, and it's just, I don't know. I think I'm of the mindset of the more people creating, the better for everybody.
Exactly. And the more people you have, the more it pushes the boundaries of whatever medium you're creating in. And I guess for your listeners, that's kind of the coolest thing is, if you have an idea, just go do it. If you have something that you want to create, if you have the drive, if you've got a novel or a story idea or a song idea, if with just the device in your pocket, you can go out and you can make that thing. Yeah. With some creativity and with some ingenuity, you can create that thing. And if you you get stumped and you're like, I don't know how to do this, you have one of the greatest resources ever. YouTube. You can go YouTube and learn how to do literally anything. If I need to know how to do something, I go on YouTube, how to whatever. And it can get even specific. I just bought a truck. It's an old, a 94 Chevy Silverado, and I was having trouble with the air conditioning, and I needed to change the blower motor in it. And I was able to go on YouTube, type in how to change 94 Chevy Silverado blower motor. Boom, there's 20 videos. And I was like, perfect.
Yeah. It's, as I feel as time goes on, we're actually losing some of those skills. There's less people that can work on a car. My dad, my father-in-law, they all they grew up doing it. But there's for me, I wouldn't call myself a car guy at all. I can fix a computer with my eyes closed, but a car is way more challenging. But I work on my car. I work 100%, do the same thing. Go to YouTube and say, how do I change the brakes on this car?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't necessarily have to have the skill, but you have in this day of in age, you have access to learn how to acquire the skill.
Yeah,
it's anything.
Yeah, it should be more people being able to go out there and do those trade skills, because it is, whether they are someone that that's older and it's just they're bored and recording it and posting it online, or they just truly are just trying to, they found it, like their creative process is to put out these how-to videos to help the future generation. Whatever it is, it's out there for people.
Exactly.
Before we let you go, I do want to let's talk about your album specifically. What's the name of the album that's dropping on April 6th?
Yeah, so the album is called The Layover, and it was birthed out of a really interesting time in my life. Last November, I was laid off from my job, and I didn't necessarily like my job, but I was good at it, and it paid the bills. And it was a pretty big shock and a pretty big kick in the gut, holy cow, I'm married, and I have my wife to support, and up until that point we were kind of we weren't making nothing, but we were still living paycheck to paycheck because I'm still paying off student loans and stuff. And so I was in this season of my life like, what the heck just happened to me? I felt like I got ran over by a truck. And then a week later my grandmother died, who I was really, really close to. So it was like bam, bam, just knocking me down. Yeah. And one of the I guess where the name comes from is there's been a couple of times where I've had to fly to Florida, and because my little brother, he went to school out there. We went out for his graduation and then his wedding, and every time we flew out there, we would have like a 2-hour layover in Denver, Colorado, and the title track, like the main hook, is it's a layover in Denver. And the interesting thing about when you're on a airplane layover, you're technically traveling, but you're not making forward progress. You can go back to where you previously were, but you're not actually moving on to the place that is going to be awesome. Because generally when you're traveling, it's for an exciting thing. My brother's graduation, my brother's wedding, it was an exciting thing, but we'd have to sit around and wait in this airport. And that was kind of the season this whole layoff period was for me. I was coming from a place of comfort. I'd had some unrest at the job, and I had just spoken to my manager, and they had given me some really cool projects that I was excited about, and kind of thinking to myself, if I'm okay here, I can stay, because one of the things I was working through is, as a Christian, Scripture says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might and with all your strength and with all your soul as worship unto the Lord. And so that was something that God was kind of working through me. He's working in me through this situation of being unhappy, and can I still work hard even though I'm not feeling it? And I had just kind of settled into that season and like, okay, this is where I'm at. I wasn't feeling fulfilled in my job, but it's what God had for me at the time, and I was like, okay, I'll do this. And like a little bit later, I got laid off, and so I was in this like weird limbo of I had just come from this place of comfort, and I knew that God had something for me, and that He was working in the situation to bring me to something better and better for me that would be more fulfilling, more challenging. Because part of my mind structure is I need to be challenged constantly, and I wasn't feeling challenged, and so I was in this weird season. It was almost like a layover where I'm technically going to the place where I'm going, but I'm not there yet, and I'm not making forward progress. And so all of these songs on this album are written during, except for 2, they were all written during this time. The other 2, they really kind of fit with the. I had written them and hadn't really fully produced them, but the lyrics kind of fit into the season, and so that's kind of like about the album and where it came from, and what I was conveying is being in this, living in this tension between what the heck just happened to me and I know I'm gonna be okay.
That's really exciting, and I can't wait for everybody to be able to listen to it on April 6th on all the platforms. I'm sure as we discussed.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's so easy.
Anywhere digital music is sold, streamed, downloaded, you can find it.
Awesome. Before we let you go officially, throw out all your plugs that you want people to know about so that they can find you online and stalk you and listen to all your stuff.
Yeah. So I'm online. My website is MykeClements.com. That's MykeClements.com. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Myke Clements, spelled the same way. I'm on Facebook as well, but I think the best posts are usually on Instagram because I love that platform, and I like taking photos and making videos and stuff. So
that's the artist in you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mike or Michael, thank you for being on the show. I cannot wait to see your album. Listen to your album when it drops. So make sure you check out Michael on all his fancy social media and websites, and listen to all his awesome music, which we're actually going to get a glimpse of by taking a listen to The Layover, the self-titled track from the album. For Everything is Awesome, I am Kev. You're listening to us right here on awesomepodcast.com, and of course we're part of the Core Temp Arts podcast network on coretemparts.com. We've been awesome.
Settling in, the voice on the intercom says, seats up, tray tables in, it's time to deboard the plane. Said my goodbyes, then got hit with some ice cold just as I walked by. Stuck in the airport, wondering when will my plane arrive.
Thank you for listening to the Court and Parts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court and Parts shows, visit courtandarts.com.